Well, I guess we can get started. We have everybody else. Ken doesn't call in. I guess we need one more member. So Stan, the voting member, until Ken comes back, joins us. So we'll get started. Anybody get a chance to look at the last minutes? Last meeting? Okay.
I did make one change on Paul's recommendation down, that you would send the memo to the planning board and he would.
Yeah.
I made that.
We ended up,
Yeah.
collaborating on it, so it's fine.
What's the change?
It was down at the end
Yeah,
of the
I
Coop Farm,
see it.
where I say that Paul will send a memo, I think, and Paul wasn't sending it, he was
Drafting.
drafting it and sending it to Doug, who would send it.
Got it, okay. Okay.
Well, there was one typo. Mentions, did you catch that?
No,
I think it was a form. One of the papers.
was it in the guest or when they actually were speaking?
No, the first section, third line from the bottom. Fourth line. 3 months to gather information, just to know myself. You see that?
Yeah,
I see it. Should that be like?
No, I'm just saying information wasn't,
Oh, I
was
see it.
missing it out.
oh, okay, fix it right now.
No
Thank
big
you.
deal, but-
Yeah, got it.
So otherwise, all looks good, except as submitted or as slightly amended. Yeah. Treasurer's report.
Yeah, Peter reports, we earned, in this month of December, $1,318.29. So our balance is, now it's 501,905.69. Yeah. After our donation to the library project.
Yeah, it's good to see. I do have one late addition to the agenda under new business. There's a number of zoning amendments that we just got some word of a couple days ago, so I meant to include it and it didn't get into the version you got, so I heard it. Yeah, there's only a couple that really directly affect us, but thought it'd be worth discussing from the planning board. Yeah. You know, it's what's gonna be on the warrant, I guess, in March, so. We'll start with the other items. We often usually do a information table at the elections, and in this case, the primary coming up in 2 weeks or something. Do you know, was the Trails Committee planning to do anything, or I guess you said they didn't?
We didn't meet, so, yeah, because I think I got the map still in my bed. I don't know. John Wallace, you should organize that. Okay, so we could.
I'm just saying we could,
Yeah,
do
we're
a
not-
joint
we're not-
table, or it'd be good. Are folks available then? Or-
So the energy committee wants to have a table as well. There's a lot of overlap.
Right.
Personnel there.
Right.
Paul, did you talk to Ron?
Yeah, so we've got a table. We can't have a table at the actual election, the town meeting
Right,
because of the
Right.
conflict.
Yeah.
But and I told him I wanted to be next to the select board table.
Okay. Select board table.
So it was shared duty in case.
Well, they're talking about the energy committee,
Yeah.
but certainly,
We have $1 for ECC, anything?
not really. In the past,
Well,
last
the past what we've done is we put up QR codes
Right.
for people, so if they wanted to find the travel tracker or they wanted to find the page.
We had a few
on our
handouts
website.
too. I know we did.
We might have had some, but
Yeah.
had some.
But that's certainly what most people want to know about is trails and
Yeah.
questions about.
Yeah, they don't really care about us looking at maps and wondering, you know, great, where's the water gonna go?
Oh, Ken is in.
Oh, good. Hey, Ken.
It's here.
Can you hear us?
Perfect.
I can't hear you.
Better than in person.
Oh, okay, great. You're in. Okay, I'm gonna tell Connor we're good. I'm not sure how, but we're good.
Okay, so we're
Great.
back to our regular members then. Sorry, Dan.
If you want, I'll ask the Trails Committee, you know, gather up stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we always get good participation, probably better from trails than we do from the commission. We're talking about doing a table at the primary day,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
23rd. It's coming up soon. Are other folks available anytime during the day?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm
Yeah,
working,
seven
and John Wallace works, so we'd have to
Yeah.
enlist people both from this room and the rest of our Trails Committee.
Mhm.
We got a few that just, man, they don't like public speaking whatsoever.
Well,
I could be there for a few hours.
yes,
What?
Yeah.
23rd, yeah.
What kind of time slots do you have?
Well,
Polls are open 8 to 7.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's busy at the beginning and busy at the end.
Yeah, and a little bump in the lunch.
Yeah, so, we don't need to cover it. Like I said, we can kind of double up. Cover each other's tables, but,
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be taking a few hours off in midday for my job, just because I need to go home and take care of the dog, because we are gonna be there late into the night, because the write-in for Biden,
Oh.
yes, we gotta count all those.
right.
And we gotta, which is stupid, because all the write-ins, they're probably all gonna say Joe Biden, but there'll be one
Yeah.
person,
Yeah,
Donald
you
Duck, and
Gotta verify.
find it.
Yeah, okay. But do folks think that's a good idea though, to have, I mean, considering it only comes around once every 4
I can
years.
float in too.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna come in to vote, I might as well hang around for an hour or something like that.
Yeah, there are definitely folks that were interested last time that
Mhm.
came up.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have any books left at this point, or what's the
Book
books,
one,
the book
trail.
status, yeah.
No.
And what, we usually, you go through Ron to make sure we have a spot,
Yeah, I guess so.
usually in the lower calf, you can just
Yeah.
grab a calf table.
Do you happen to have his number or?
I got Ron.
Or,
If not, I'll be seeing him Tuesday.
I mean, do you want
I didn't send it.
Yeah, since
contact?
since we need both committees and I'm on
Right.
both.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, like I said, is sitting behind my bed.
Jack,
Yeah.
that map, I can't recall, does it have trails or is it just? the
It just shows where the areas
Properties.
are.
Okay, yeah.
You really can't show a map of town and then also show the trails.
Used to have.
Those views, so.
How did that?
I don't know, but I'm gonna quit.
I can do like the 8 to 10.
Don't know. But I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna
well,
join.
do more. Okay.
I'll do morning.
Okay.
It's just will help, because I'll let the trails people know that, other people are helping. So.
And did you think you could be there? Or?
I might be able to help set up a little bit, for my
Yeah.
guidance, but I've
Yeah.
got my own setup I have to do. Because I still don't know if Jack Mingham's gonna be there.
Yeah.
He's my count.
He said he's out in the parking lot all day.
Oh, yeah, that means he's gonna be there. Because I need him to take over for me on the town election. Since I can, I'm now. I can't be greeter, so I'm gonna get a day off in March.
Right. Dan, you said you could be there sometime? Do you have a
Yeah, I would probably be
preference?
later in the day. then.
Later. Mhm. Okay.
Because I think you're right. So morning and evening are the two busiest times. It'll probably be pretty quiet, I would,
Yeah.
most of the day.
I could be there midday, so.
You can't think of anything you print off our website, would be anything to have.
Well, we usually, we're gonna put trail tracker things out, and probably put a QR form, so you can call up the website. People get so used to it, it's not hard to find.
So,
Barringtonconcom.org.
yeah, that's basically, just refer them to the website. That's where all the maps are available.
Yeah. Let's see,
At least we
and
can
one thing
find-
we could do is I could make up something, let's see, so I can get a trail tracker. I'll get a QR on the website. Also, I can make a little poster for our hike because we're not doing a hike this weekend. We're doing it the 26th. It's Moonlight Hike. So we can,
Where then?
Stonehouse Forest off Route 202 Harrison Gate. It's nice and wide open and I'm hoping some snow hanging around long enough because that makes it so much
Yeah,
nicer.
so you can
hike you can bring a flashlight and use it. It's so bright out there.
Yeah.
So that trail's out there, it's so wide. Of course, it was supposed to be a road,
Yeah.
a resort.
Yeah. Okay, you bring I guess I have a copy too, but, you could have one table copy, maybe, the trails booklet. It's not a good thing.
I tell you right now, I'd be afraid of mine. It would go away.
Well, put a big sign on it saying do not remove, or, I
Yeah.
mean, I could bring one. I just thought it'd be good.
I'll put it on
I
a
mean,
piece
it's available to.
I'm gonna put it on a piece of rope.
Into the table. Yeah.
If you want to show somebody, hey, here's a map of this property, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the answer, just like for you showing up.
Just butt in, Ken, they're,
The book is being redrafted, but right now we're crunching through the maps and Betsy's doing a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
But she's got the skills.
On the other day.
Yeah, so. Updated. Yeah.
The map's the most critical thing because other than, we don't know where things are gonna be at. We don't know if Leighton Forest is gonna be. We don't, it's gonna be a while before Landry project becomes a public
Yeah.
place.
Because they said 2025.
I've kind of pushed John to say, hey, we don't publish anything in the book that people can't go to now
Mhm.
and be legally on the property.
Yeah.
Because I really want to put stuff on Leighton, there's one trail, it's not marked. It's not sending people out
And
there.
that's the nature of it. It's just gonna keep updating.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to.
Well, as long as we still got John. It's supposed to be last June. Last year. I'll put you down for later, Dan, thank you.
I'm there most of the day, but it's like work table.
yeah.
I'm gonna say no to that.
Yeah,
We've got another
keep an eye
conflict with the energy table.
Right, of course, yeah. Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna try joining again. I'll kill it if it gives the same problem.
Yeah, Paul, if you make sure you're muted, because right now you're.
Yeah, no, I am. This seems to have worked this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ken, are you gonna be around on election day, or do you wanna? Help at all?
I've got volunteered. I do have a couple of copies of the old book that would be useful to pass along.
Okay. I guess we're pretty well set then. Let me know if there's any complications or something, but that'd be great if you can put that together. Get another volunteer or two.
Yeah, these are special projects, which your vice chair should step up.
Whatever. It's great. Okay, so we'll go on to the wetland buffer issue. I don't know if you got a chance to look at that.
I did not.
Material.
I
I
didn't
haven't
look
really.
at the new stuff yet.
Yeah.
I assume it's pretty similar to what we've had before as far as the actual exercise goes.
Mhm.
But the big difference is that it sounds like they're asking us to review everything comes before us.
You mean for the, any of the 9.6?
Well, it didn't sound like it was just 9.6s. It sounded like she was saying any application that comes before, because we don't know who's gonna file a 9.6.
Right.
It sounded like she wanted us to run through every new proposal for a development that came before the board.
Mhm.
That might be too much.
Yeah, so,
But I mean, if they're not gonna do a 9.6, they're not even gonna.
yeah,
Well,
what do we
this
do?
is
They want us to
more,
comment on the rest of it.
this is more as an exercise for the procedure.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, what I was really referring to though is this opportunity. I can't remember who's sponsoring it, but there's an opportunity for a workshop or some kind of training process.
Could be the Stratford Regional Planning. I think it's-
From University of New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, I
I
think
sent
it's
that to
UNH. Yeah, is that what?
I sent that to you.
Yeah. Okay,
It looked good.
I meant to go take another look at it, but I know, we need to apply by like February 3rd or something, so it's coming up pretty quick. So you didn't,
I haven't put together anything for that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we can get something in because it aligns well with what we want to do. I mean, you know, we were talking about what we need is the capability for putting overlays from the property lines onto the GIS tools. And that's a pretty clear definition of what's needed. And it seems to, I don't know if it's too limited in scope for what they're trying for. But it's a reasonable proposal and we can add, you know, the reason is for this application that we're putting together to develop, you know, a quantitative method for thinking about
Buffer modification.
buffer modification.
Email I saw, you know, they just seemed like this workshop specifically, you know, was focused on exactly what you're saying.
There were GIS issues were definitely a couple of the things that
Yeah.
were mentioned, so it seems like a good
Probably
match.
like it's not,
It's just online training, evolution.
I don't know.
clear. I don't know what the time commitments are.
yeah, it didn't,
Well,
there wasn't a lot of specifics in the email, but obviously we get into the application process. So, Paul, do you want to work together on?
Yeah,
so
that
we
would be
can put
good.
that together? Yeah, and I don't know whether there's applications for monitoring, or if you think it would be, there's some.
When they said
Because
they would monitor.
I don't think we're
I-
limited
I-
to like one
I
workshop.
heard that was. Still,
Yeah.
you know, really wetland specifics and the process to identify GIS.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead on that.
I'll get in touch with you. We can work on that. I'm just looking at Vanessa's letter here and I take it back. Maybe it is only BCC will be completing data form for each request to waive the buffer. So it is just for the 9.6.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to get moving on that since we
And,
don't have.
and Paul,
Yeah,
that she wasn't clear enough. It's not to waive the buffer, but to waive a portion of the buffer.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't think she's being real specific, but
Yeah.
at least it's not everything that comes before the planning board, because that would have been overwhelming.
Yes.
After the past month, everybody's got monitors in their yard.
Yeah, sort of true. Yeah.
Not as bad as Hampton Beach, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next item is as I mentioned, the zoning amendments. And I had gotten somewhere to this a while back, but it was a little confusing as to what was actually gonna be, and I'm still a little confused after Tuesday's meeting. Because there's the regular list of what the planning board has put together, and then there were some petition articles. And I don't recall exactly what, there's supposed to be a hearing, I guess, on the regular ones, the planning board ones, and did they postpone it, or I didn't?
Was it continued yesterday?
That's what I wasn't clear. They said something about if the weather's bad, they continue it
Yeah.
tomorrow, but all the other stuff, they're continuing to next Tuesday.
Right, so I don't know.
But any case, it seemed like we might want to weigh in on, or at least be aware of what's being proposed. And there's 20, a whole lot of them. Yeah, 19 of them.
You know, the town websites.
They eventually will go off. I
They
think,
will,
once-
yeah.
I think that's the,
Yeah.
once the final meeting,
Bring them up.
the select
Yeah.
board releases them. And there is a rule that says how soon they have to be before the February 3rd deliberative, so that people can chew on them.
Right. Although I guess they never discuss them at the deliberative session because they're zoning amendments.
they can only null them out or
I don't think you
It
can.
was
do
supposed to be
anything with
Tuesday
them.
the ninth. It was supposed to be.
You have that on front or just?
It is available. I mean, I got a link somewhere, but I'll just tell you what, at least what jumped out for me. And it was actually something that Paul brought up, that despite all the talk about, doing a yield plan for the, like you think of Young Road or any conservation, development, that's to get a number of what the maximum.
yeah, this really came up when I got to Coot Farm.
Right, yeah. In any case, they are addressing it in amending the existing language on conservation subdivisions to specifically refer to a yield. Yeah, Paul noticed there wasn't any reference to
Yeah,
yield.
I did a search through all the town documents looking for anything that said yield or yield plan, and there is nothing.
Yeah,
And I looked through some of the legal cases on the court dockets, and I realized that the towns very specifically, if they haven't laid out in clear detail how they treat the yield plan, what it has to contain, and how it constrains the conservation subdivision, the courts would you'd lose in court. I thought we didn't have anything, but Doug, take it from there.
yeah, so what they're doing is, as I said, amending the existing language under 6.3.2 that refers to a conceptual development plan, and they added in design, so just to, I guess, be more specific, and then added in and yield required. And
I think we were actually, on a technicality, we probably could have said, well, we call it a conceptual design.
right,
Everyone else calls it a yield plan.
yeah,
So
and I expect that's what they have been
Yeah.
doing, but obviously it's better to be specific. So beyond that, there's a whole new paragraph on kind of defining a yield plan. So I guess I can just read it since we can't pull it up, but it's 6.3.2 parentheses 4. Yield plan, a plan which demonstrates the maximum number of buildable lots achievable under conventional zoning at the full density allowed in the district. Plan should be based upon maps showing the conservation areas consisting of wetlands, floodplains, and steep slopes. In addition to this information, the lot should be laid out in the conventional format, taking into consideration a roadway network and the minimum lot size requirements, frontage, and contiguous upland areas. If the plan requires a waiver from these subdivision regulations, a preliminary public hearing shall be conducted by the planning board prior to an applicant's formal submittal application for major subdivision approval. So, that all sounds pretty good. And again, it's kind of what they've been doing in any case,
Right.
or what the developers assume. It's not real clear when this kicks in. I mean, obviously it has to be voted on at the town meeting vote. But there was some debate at the last meeting about how do we know when a plan has been submitted, or what's the actual submittal date? And so it probably won't apply to Coot Farm.
Well, I
certainly
think it
not.
will, because they don't actually have an
Yeah.
application yet. They're still conceptual and preliminary.
Right.
So it depends on when they
Yeah.
file.
But certainly Young Road, it would apply.
No, yeah.
Because that's been that for a while. So anyway, that's kind of, going forward, we want to obviously make it clearer. One thing that came up with Coot Farm, and certainly previously with other ones, is question of wetland buffers. We'll get into the Coot Farm thing specifically in a minute, but in the map they showed, there were no buffers at all. And considering there's like 3 different prime wetlands on this property, that could be important, right? I mean, we're talking significant amount of land. And they do refer to buffers in the existing language, but it just says plan shall show the general location of proposed roadways, lots, open space, and buffers, as well as significant features that have been identified. you know, you might assume when they say buffers, they're referring to wetland buffers, but it's not totally clear, so maybe we want to suggest that it say wetland buffers.
Maybe they were trying to capture or use a generic term, but also kind of meant setbacks.
Yeah, but I mean, setbacks are different than buffers. I know they kind of seem so.
They're basically standoffs from some sort of boundary, whether it be natural or legal.
Yeah.
They probably should be more specific, given
Yeah, so
the
we might,
nature of
if we get a chance.
everybody that bitches has a.
Yeah,
I pulled this up. I didn't know if we were going to.
not yet. I think
Okay.
we'll hold off on that, but, so anyway, there's that section, and then under, standards for the, residential, just like regular development districts, GR and NR, can't remember what.
General residential,
Yeah.
neighborhood residential.
Residential. So the different categories of zoning, right? They did again clarify things a little bit more to, I guess, instead of saying hydric A soils, they're now saying poorly or very poorly drained soils, which is kind of the distinction between a wetland and a prime wetland, right? And they also refer to the contiguous uplands. And, you know, it's again, just clarifying the existing standards for how big a lot can be. And if you add an extra dwelling unit, I guess would include a duplex.
I don't know about
Clear,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly if you had an extra apartment or whatever, then you need to have more land. It was kind of funny, actually, in the printout that they handed out at the planning board, in this one line that is, I guess, supposed to just provide background. It says propose the language to be uniform for, it's supposed to say contiguous uplands, but it actually spelled out contagious. So I have no idea what a contagious upland is, but I don't know if they are contagious. Yeah, so somebody needs to spell check them, but that's not the actual reg.
Do you have Andy's stuff there? Or,
Um,
well, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to this, you know, the standard 19 items that be on the ballot, there's about half a dozen, I guess,
At
different
least.
amendments that Andy Knapp, who's on the planning board, former select board member. I guess he was chair at some
Yeah, he
point.
was.
Right? Anyway, he really wants to do more. And it was a little confusing exactly what transpired. It's so confusing to me.
Couldn't he get his own board to submit them?
Yeah,
So he had
and so they did a
petitions.
petition. He got, you know, enough signatures, like twice as many or 4 times as many signatures, but he didn't submit them at the right time by the deadline. And so he was quite embarrassed about all that. And then he brought it to the planning board to kind of approve them. I didn't quite understand the
Well,
procedure.
he was asking for an exception. He was a day late and he asked if they would take them in any case.
But are they still petitioned or are they? actually
Yeah, I think
planned
that's still,
for it? 'Cause
well,
they did vote
I
on
don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the vote was 3-2, but it was positive, you know, barely.
Right.
So, and the key thing here that's being proposed is to expand the regular lot size, the kind of standard lots, from, you know, 1.88 acres, I guess, to 3.4 or something. So basically doubling the size of the,
Required.
Lots.
minimum
right,
lots, Which is not zoning.
yeah, I mean, it's considered bad form in terms of, you know, economics, I guess, you know, obviously
There
affordability of
was
the
a
land.
weird comment that was made. I don't remember if it was Bobby Caverly that made it.
+1-978-300.
He seemed to think that this would help the lower income bracket, and I
Yeah.
was lost on
Yeah,
that.
but clearly in terms of the yield plans, you know, to get to our other stuff, it would help there because obviously if the lots have to be bigger, the yield would be smaller in terms of total residences, house lots. So I don't know, there's certainly mixed thinking about it. Generally, they say it encourages sprawl to have larger lots, which is generally true.
That's my concern. Well, because when you get a bigger lot, almost always builders always then go, you know what, we're gonna build a house with 2 more bedrooms and an extra bath. And so now you got these McMansions. There's houses up here that are listing for 9
Right.
in
No,
Barrington.
I'm sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Sure.
Yeah.
We don't need,
so,
how do we, I mean, New Hampshire doesn't need that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and
I don't have
then
any kids.
they talk about the housing shortage, but the houses that they're building are not to address that shortage
Well,
whatsoever.
The economy for the upper 10% is working fine. There's no shortages. They're getting the houses they want. It's, you know, a kid needs to find somehow,
Right.
find someone who just built a Cape, which no one builds anymore.
Yeah,
And, you know, we're just enough room for the first few kids. It's
yeah,
not happening.
yeah. Ken, did you have comment?
Well, yeah, I mean, just being redundant on what you guys are saying, I think Andy's. I'm getting an echo. Andy's in the right place trying to prevent these conservation subdivisions that aren't very subdivisions. But right, the unintended consequence is, you know, houses will all be $1 million houses on those big lots.
Right.
And there'll be no, everybody will put fences up and there'll be no wildlife either. So, wrong solution, I think.
I think a couple of years ago, this tried to come in because one of your colleagues, Joyce, asked me about it. And I just told her, so this sounds like snob zoning. And I said, you know, Barrington probably shouldn't be trying to turn itself into an exclusive bedroom community. Because I said, I've canvassed at enough neighborhoods in this town. We got a long way to go. I live in one of them. Perry River is not a resort.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's again, it's a petitioned article, so I guess it will be discussed at the.
At the next, yeah, at the continuation.
Well, I'm saying even at the deliberative session.
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
be.
right.
I would think it's controversial
Yes,
enough
it
that
will.
people will have things to say. But I gather we,
But did you say they did vote to accept or make an exception for the 1 day?
We're not sure exactly on what terms they did, but yes, some, in one way or another, it will be on the ballot.
yeah, I guess that's.
Is there a reason why a member of the planning board, he's still a member, right?
Andy?
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah,
So why would he have to go the petition route when he could have done it through basically regular order of his board?
yeah, I'm not sure.
Because
Previous.
the board didn't approve it.
All right, so were these, they
Yeah.
previously said no to him, so he went the other route?
I believe that's true, but that.
Probably what happened.
And then he
And-
used the board again to get him in because he missed the day.
And that wouldn't surprise me because based on other portions of the meeting, you know, Andy, he was really, so part of the meeting was dedicated to a review of a new review of the road project. And he raked them over the coals.
Yeah, well, let's hold off on that. But yes, Andy was very busy. The developer, or the consultant for the developer, I guess, Chris Berry was very busy because he's doing several projects. So it was kind of a crazy meeting, hard to keep up with all the developments, but I thought at least I'd put it out there so you have some sense of what's coming up. And I guess they'll hash it out at the deliberative session, so.
Yeah.
3.4 acres is ridiculous. The need for lower income housing anywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
Not even
Any house.
Any house, really, it's just. It's a-
Yeah.
that's a-
But of course, the exception to that would be doing conservation development.
And multifamily.
They would still
Yeah,
be
like
the smallest,
townhouses and things.
right, and townhouses, so it's not like it would preclude on any of that, but obviously make it a little more complicated.
Is that gonna move us to, we're gonna have these little clusters of, you know, and we're gonna have mansions.
Yeah,
These as far as future building,
yeah,
because even now, you know, the money it takes to put on the current size lot. You know, a 10-unit house on there, it's pretty damn expensive, especially
Yeah.
for this town.
yeah. Well, I think part of the rationale was to, preserve the rural character of the town, and that's what.
That was the primary reason.
the general zoning, the village district and the different districts, that's supposed to concentrate it as
Right.
well. As you probably noticed, there's townhouses going up all over in the
Yeah,
village
this
district.
only applies to the residential, the general, the neighborhood. Residential districts, it
Yeah.
doesn't apply to the village. And there's another one.
Well, probably be hard to find a 3.4 acres
Yeah.
in the village.
Yeah, there aren't many left, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted folks to be aware of that, so I don't think any action on our part, but
No.
there they are, as far as we know.
When they come out, you
Yeah.
can read them, and you can show up on February 3rd.
Right, right. Okay. So that's all the new business. There's nothing new before the planning board other than the existing ones, so. And I guess the real new one, and for some of the folks here, is the Coot Farm. We did have a pretty interesting discussion at the last meeting that only 3 of us were here for. That involved most of the residents of Canonback Road and Old Settlers Road. This is the other one. So they were having 15. Plus another woman who had a different issue with us. And they actually got here early. They were here when I got here at 6:45, so it was quite a scene. We had standing room only in this little room, if you could imagine it. It may be a record for the Conservation Commission.
And yet only 3 of us.
Yeah, and then, yeah, we barely, I was worried we wouldn't.
3 days after Christmas.
Yeah, I realized it was a tough time to have a meeting, but the good thing is that people are quite, engaged or energized about this plan. So if you hadn't heard anything about it as yet, it's 600 acres total. And it's the one big blob of open space left in town. And on our co-occurrence map, it's the #1 area for protection because there's so much prime wetlands and unfragmented forest and all that. So I guess you could pull up the map now, to give people a sense if you're able.
What's gonna happen to the big house that's there?
That will stay there, yeah, evidently, and I believe the person planning this whole development is the owner, the resident, Carla Williams.
And it will have buffers around it. So this is the existing, the big house, and they're going to keep they're not going to develop directly around
The
that.
plan is to have roads on either side of it, basically, heading into the back, do the whole. So that whole area there, everything in light green, basically, up to Canonback Road is the line there, is the land question. I guess CELT has previously consulted with them, and I was kind of remiss in not catching it. We did get a letter from the developer, from the Razor. The guy's name is Razor.
This is the guy from Maine.
Yeah, from Maine, who's did the plan. And he did inform us that they were going to the planning board back in November, and I just missed it. And like our input, of course, so we could invite them in if it seems appropriate at some point to give their spiel. But this is what really got people incensed was the yield plan here. It shows quite a few additional roads, of course, to get to all these properties, and you can't really see, but there's some very steep ledges and mountains basically in the property that they're proposing to like blast roads through. And I mean, as
And as far as we know, the green is all prime wetlands, right?
Not exactly. The large section, the one you have the pointer at, and over to the right of there, and I think that lower stretch along, there's the Spruce Creek down there. There's 3 prime wetlands, and then there's those little pockets of green. Those are just regular wetlands. But obviously a lot of it is wetlands.
They have a lot of crossings over prime wetlands for the roads that are proposed for the yield plan.
Right, and then, and in fact, there's 5 different crossings of, significant wetlands, 3 of which are in prime wetlands. And they say, well, there's already roads there because they did logging and there's like logging roads. But obviously that's very different than building a real road. So like major permitting would be required, certainly. And this is the drainage into the Isinglass River mainly. I guess there's a little bit that's.
These are all
Well-
single family dwellings.
Well, that's the other thing. They
It's
came up.
74 and I don't. see
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
there's
There's actually 184, I think, 185 on the yield.
on the
plan.
yield plan.
But what they're proposing, the first take on it is to have 174 units, but about half of them are duplexes. And so they're gonna be these clusters. You see the one there on the,
This is a cluster of duplexes, and then there's
there's another one.
another cluster
On the other
over
side.
here, much smaller.
And is there a third one or those
No,
are
that's
single
it.
family? The others, yeah. So between those two, that's almost half, I think 80 or 90 units altogether. And that's probably what people are most incensed about, as you can imagine, that's a lot of traffic on it's a dirt road, right? It's a scenic road, which
Right.
evidently the Conservation Commission requested or got it designated as a official scenic road, which means basically they can't mess with the trees along the road or the
Without
walls.
permission from the planning.
Right, yeah, and I don't know if we're included, maybe not in that case.
It-
Anyway, the planning board would have to sign off on
I
it.
think we are, because remember, public service always comes to us with the kind of stuff.
Yeah, it seems like,
Are they gonna try to pave that scenic road?
well, I would think so, but yeah, that would be.
We ought to have a
fine, too.
dirt road that goes in and then
Yeah.
everything is paved in the development.
Right, yeah. I mean, it is the first half mile, I guess.
It's
Route-
hard to tell.
Route
from
9
this,
is right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah, it's not far.
right at that corner, which they didn't seem bothered to include on the map, so that's kind of annoying, but,
Yeah, this is a LiDAR scan. It's not a real map, and it's problematic.
Well, I'm
because
keep
of
looking
that.
for like, is there a feature, is the road that runs this, is that 202?
Well,
can you
two-
show where it runs basically?
I think
North,
this might
south.
be, is this 202?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And you can only tell that because it was graded, right?
Right.
So you can see some of the grading in the LiDAR, but it basically is.
Must
at
curve
the
down here.
Yeah, the rightmost corner there, that's the junction of,
Where it flares out.
yeah,
Right.
of Canyon back, right?
People
So,
over here said these roads were 2-rod roads, which is,
and there,
about 32 feet.
yeah.
Even if they paved it, it's handle that amount of traffic. I can't imagine.
Yeah, they would clearly be coming to the town with a request to widen that out.
And I would assume the fire department would want that as well.
Right, right.
if
And
they-
I don't know what would happen.
There is also, it's, I think worth mentioning, just
14.
above that big cluster of duplexes, there is an existing mobile home park. It opens right out onto Route 9 though. Yeah, it's in
Is that
that
up
plateau
here?
there,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not like there isn't development near there, but it's obviously not on Canaan Road. So, that's, most of the residents' concerns certainly are about that. Obviously, that's not our purview. But there is, of course, a lot of issues with the potential wetlands impacts and just the size of the development. So we did put together comments, running a full page, I guess, of questions, and a lot of it came from what some of the residents brought up. I didn't circulate it to everybody, but I'd be glad to if you want to read all the details. But it is obviously worth pointing out that it is a huge opportunity in terms of getting that land formally protected. One of the people that came to the meeting last time from the neighborhood was actually the former owner, I guess, or it was in his family. He was another Williams, Colin Williams. And he knows the land really well. And he said, well, my dad always wanted to have it protected. He just didn't get around to it, basically.
What swath is actually gonna be protected around the development?
Yeah, it's, Yeah, it's everything in light green, right? Light and dark green,
Right, well, so this,
500 acres.
484 or something, yeah.
Remember,
So
this is the preliminary, the other one eats up a lot of the light green.
what do you mean?
what do you mean?
But that's for their yield.
That's the yield
Oh,
plan.
that was the, okay.
Yeah, it's, this is the actual proposal, right?
Okay, this is the final.
As a conservation.
No, this is all very.
It's preliminary, but there's no more phases after this.
This
As
is,
far as no more houses.
Well, no, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, no,
this is
right,
probably
no.
max.
Well, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming if they talk to South, that would all then be, have a protective easement on it, that's all.
Not necessarily. A conservation subdivision doesn't require.
Right, and that's,
But South doesn't need to be involved in it either then.
no, but.
We don't know what Celt's involvement is.
So
I'm
there's
sorry.
Well,
There's no-
I know that they're involved and that they had discussion with them, and actually, I did get a message from Dwayne Hyde itself. Saying they'd put together a evaluation, I guess kind of a standard report on the value of the land, which we could get a hold of. So there's been some discussion because I guess it's a little hard to tell from this, but the left land up above that is basically Leighton Forest, okay? And then to the directly north, that section that's missing there, well, in between those two jutting out points, that's the Bedford Estate, which
Oh, is that?
the
that in
Bedford
here?
folks own a lot of places in around Barrington, yeah. And that's, almost all wetlands. And that's not protected, but I don't know if they're talking with, but I know they're talking about other properties. I wrote a letter in support of another one more central to town. And then, of course, you have Stonehouse Forest is not too far over to the right, where on the other side, of course, other side of Route 9. So there's a lot of land, and this would obviously kind of put them together. And of course, Selt would be very interested in basically expanding the Leighton Forest.
It's supposed to be like 12 miles of trails, I heard. Would this be open to the public?
Can you go to the trail? There's a trail map that kind of shows, it's not real clear, but those little lines there are the existing trails, which are basically logging roads. You can see where they cross in several locations. Again, under the yield plan, those would all become residential roads, but yeah, the idea is that they would become public. And in fact, in the plan, the conservation plan, they show a trailhead location, basically the back of the development. At the end of that cul-de-sac on the leftmost side,
Oh, here.
it says trailhead, yeah.
Oh,
So that would be where you get into the rest of the land. So, there's a huge opportunity there. And I did say, we strongly supported becoming a conservation development because of the fact that so much of this could be put into some kind of conservation protection.
It'd be nice if at the end of that road, that little turnaround was actually a parking lot, so. people
Yeah,
would
I
go
think,
there.
I think
it
that
would
would
be.
be-
I think
yeah,
that's
Because,
implied.
well,
to some
the people
extent.
on Breezy Way, when they set up the one from Village Place, they don't really like anyone coming out there and barking. They want you
Yeah.
to park on
Yeah,
the Route 9 Littleworth end,
yeah,
not the other.
right. So it's not clear, exactly what they would do, but at least that's,
Realize this is all extremely preliminary. What's important to state is this yield plan has been greeted with incredible skepticism by everyone at the meeting. I mean, the planning board, the residents. I mean, everyone looked at this and said, this is ridiculous. This is nuts. I'm kind of surprised that Selt wouldn't have had anything to say about
well,
that.
and I'm sorry, what also Dwayne said is we don't want to make comment yet because it's too early. We want to get
Oh,
input
okay.
from the neighbors and all, so they're kind of laying back, but they certainly will be involved, I'm sure.
John Huckins was looking at this and just saying, no, these are not buildable lots.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of them you can see more than half of them are wetlands in some cases.
Some of the brook is in the,
Yeah,
the
and-
pool room.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, some of it, you know, it's just like they just sort of did this cookie cutter approach, and look at the one down at the lower.
Yeah, and the
Center
road
of the
planning
lines.
is on, you know, look at the
Yeah,
the
they go up
slopes
like
on this.
it's over cliffs, you know. Yeah, there's several that are pretty crazy.
What was the gist of the neighbors that showed up at the last meeting? It was kind
Yeah,
of.
it was, yeah, all that, and, you know, they brought up the kind of typical things of it's very shallow soils.
Outrage.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty outraged, basically, you know, for good reason. But they brought up a lot of the same issues that, you know, we brought up in other proposals, and
Go, Ken.
go ahead, Ken.
A couple of things. I came in remotely, and I noticed that Dwayne seemed to be there remotely.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, that's confirmed, that he was there. Also, the meeting was they ended at 10 o'clock exactly because they agreed because of the bad weather to continue into the next week. There was gonna be a lot more said. That could have gone to 11 o'clock easily.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't say anything because I figured I'd let some of the abutters speak first or have their say.
And John Driscoll said this process is going, you know, Young Road, I guess, has been over a year.
Yeah.
He said this is going to be a multi-year project.
Yeah, and we spoke very briefly on the way out, and, you know, I guess he didn't want to say I wasn't gonna prod him on anything, but he basically said, you know, it's gonna be smaller. There's no way we're gonna do, you know, 174. So that was kind of his one comment, is way too big. So then, and again, that seemed to be the general feeling of pretty much everybody on the board. So, you know, so they're gonna, obviously, the developer seemed pretty flexible about who's taking input and getting.
Right.
Well, they're
redoing
smart.
it.
They,
Yeah.
they read the questions from the boards in responses to the citizens and go, and yeah, if they know anything, they know about how the young project's going, and
Yeah,
they're like, okay, we can't have an opinion of that.
From a developer, they're gonna shoot higher, they.
right,
Mhm.
yeah,
Right.
of course. when it goes down.
Right.
And regardless of what it is going to be a huge difference and a huge impact on that area.
Yeah, yeah,
That's clear.
yeah.
And the fact that it's in a code, so it's on one of our current circles on. the
Yeah,
map.
so are you
Yeah,
able to
Dwayne's
pull
okay
that
with
up?
that.
Or It's on our,
If you can give me a link, I can
well,
pull
it's
it
on
up.
the Concom website.
Concom.org.
It's also.
One word.
All one word, yeah. You got it. Yep, you got it. You got it.
There we go. Maps and links.
Yeah, Concom maps.
Well, the waves is not water.
Just scroll down, either one of those. You have to click on it. One shows the roads, the other doesn't, right? But yeah, if you recall, there were circles drawn,
Yeah, it was
like five different.
Yeah.
And
Those-
it's the big, it's. I don't know if
Well, I
it's the
know,
biggest
I know
one,
the
but
stuff
it's the number
to the
one.
west of Stonehouse Pond
Next
was
to all the low.
in there. Yeah, it's.
Did you email that out? So everybody can-
Yeah, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't make the meetings.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give the summary though, at the bottom line, literally, well, that's coming up.
Or is it?
Actually, you may need to scroll down. It's possible it's there, but not.
Well,
No,
bottom
it
of the
isn't.
page is-
It's taking so long. But say, given all these concerns, we'd like to request that a full environmental impact assessment be done for the project, including identification of vernal pools on the property, you know, as they didn't do for Young Road. With the proposed density of housing upgrading sensitive waterways and wetlands, we'd also like to see a hydrological study conducted prior to determination of suitability of the development. So, you know, this went out to all the planning board, and I presume the developer, or, you know, it was in the packets stuff. But I'll be certainly reiterating that at the next go round of the public comment.
Something's not.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, we could try the other one. It is also available in the planning department section.
Here you go,
There you
take
go.
it. There you go.
Okay, so The lower left one there, that's what we're talking about. It's almost that whole circle there.
Hale Brook.
And you can see all the dark chocolate, of course, is the good stuff. You know, all those wetlands through there. And you can see how it drains into, it's kind of confusing. There's so many brooks. You got Spruce Brook on the left and Hale Brook on the right.
I think it's
Hall Brook, yeah, maybe it's Hall.
It's Hale Pond. I know.
Which runs into Nippo Brook coming out of, not Nippo, I'm sorry, Stonehouse Pond, Stonehouse Brook, which connects to Nippo Brook on the upper, just outside the circle there. So it's a lot of really special land.
And Dwayne was aware of this and he's still like liking this project?
Well, liking seeing all that, most of that protected,
You like to
of
see the
course,
protection.
I mean,
It is 400 of 600, 400
Yeah.
plus of 600 plus acres, so.
I suppose that, yeah, things could be worse, but
yeah. So anyway, that just to give you an idea, and it isn't just the size that it's actually labeled as number one because of it, you know, meets the most
Right.
co-occurrences, I guess, out of all the ones up there. So, and I think the number 2 one is just above it or to
Yep.
the numbers on there. Yeah,
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 that's where
that one.
my pond comes in and joins the isinglass to the west.
And actually, I believe there is,
Or not.
Salt is doing a project. I
Yes,
think it's
On the southwest end of Long
Yeah.
Pond, which is the one that sort of looks like a tadpole there
right.
to the towards the western boundary.
So some
Down
of them.
towards the end of the tadpole, but it's all so it was all private land on that side. None of it's developed. Basically, it stops along where my house is on the other side. I look across and all I see is hunting land.
Yeah. So I suppose they'll be letting us know about that. I just saw it in their newsletter saying.
Yeah, and I asked him about it.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, it's going on.
Yeah, so we'll probably hear more
And I
about
just
it.
said, you know, you're not gonna do anything to screw with the dam, are you? Because that, the dam at the bottom there that drains into the isinglass, but at the top of it, Berry River comes in. And that's the one that's probably gonna be impacted by those water projects out in Rochester Reservoir. And so, I mean, I'm looking, because I drove here today and I looked at how many of my neighbors are like close to being underwater. I just concerned that, you know, activities going on both ends could end up turning my neighborhood into a swim meet.
Yeah, so there's certainly a lot of water issues involved, and drainage and impacts, and you can imagine that many residences in that small an area. And actually, the area that's where they're looking to put the big cluster of duplexes is right next to the Hall Brook there. If you can, I guess you can enlarge it, but
No, I'm having.
but you can see actually where you have the pointers, that mobile home parks. So you've already got that in there, and then you add basically doubling the number of toilets, if you will. It's certainly going to have an impact on the waters downstream. So down gradient. So I guess to be continued, like I said, if you want to come to the planning board meeting, it's 16th, it's coming Tuesday. We're continuing it. And there'll be more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they sort of stopped in the middle of the Coop Lake stuff, Coop Farm stuff, so
Yeah.
that's where they'll pick up.
Yeah, and just like our meeting, the planning board meeting was also standing room only. I mean, it's
Wow.
pretty amazing how many, I've never seen that many people show up. They weren't all there for Coop Farm, but probably the majority of them. Yeah. There were other people
Yeah,
there
more-
for
more than that.
the other ones that came up. So if that's enough for now, if you have some burning questions or comments.
Like
we'll,
you can share those notes.
Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to the Garrier Road. If you recall, this was land that had was to be developed. They had a whole nice plan with roads and everything, and cul-de-sacs. And then the outfit that was doing it went bankrupt. It came over to the town, so it was town property. Then the town just last year, I guess, sold it to this other developer.
We were trying to find things like make it a 55 and over. And
Yeah,
I couldn't do that.
right. so he's looking to kind of repackage it and come up with a different layout for lots, and it was still pretty confusing. You know, he was showing this to the planning board and we didn't really, they had it angled so nobody in the audience could see it, including us. But
That's another one. Yes, he does use crayon.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one that's even more colorful.
This one.
I think it's the bottom
Yes,
one.
this one.
It's just
Yeah,
the application.
Yeah, there you go.
You must have take your kid to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so anyway,
GIS.
yeah.
But all that being said,
Yes,
he actually is proposing to consolidate the conservation land.
right,
And what he's doing looks pretty good.
yeah, although we don't know exactly.
No,
We couldn't see it.
We
It
only
didn't
have
have a map
crayon
of it.
drawings.
And the map we do have, I guess,
So we did work off of,
Yeah.
kind of walked off of.
but it says draft, and I'm not clear that that's the actual one. If you go on the, any of the maps of town where they show
Yellow stuff.
conserved
It's all
areas,
grown.
it shows it a little
Lots of
different.
Consolidation,
Yeah.
lots.
But in any case, you can see it's a real patchwork. And the big issue is on the northern end of it, up the top there.
This, is that
That's
it?
purple.
This is the lane right here.
Yeah, the area in purple, that, so they never built that cul-de-sac. There's no road going in there. The last road you see is kind of in the center there was kind of a star.
Yeah.
And that, I think it's called Heritage. Drive. Yeah.
This is not, yeah.
And that
This
doesn't
is
really
like-
go anywhere either.
This is a Pioneer, it's
Yeah.
a brand new, it goes
Which
right,
is-
there's a big
yeah.
wetland here.
But it appears that he's not talking at all about heading north. That Pioneer Road isn't gonna happen,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that seemed to be the gist.
Oh, really? In the meeting? He's
Yeah,
not
that-
gonna do
yeah,
that. Okay,
yeah.
well, that's a good.
And so a lot of this area up here that's currently, you know, been designated as lots will become conservation land,
Okay,
assuming we all
well,
approve.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah, because it is reaching, that's kind of the key
Towards
one.
Mendels.
Yeah,
And it's in
um,
Mendham.
yeah, so you,
Or
I think
actually-
y'all have got the email about it, but you know, Gary proposed doing a hike and Paul and I were able to join him on Tuesday.
The fourth, yeah.
Yeah, and we covered quite a bit of it. We didn't do the whole property. But we were able to, again, verify that those roads don't exist. This area in here is all wild. But a lot of wetlands in there.
There's a couple of lots that are some ugly brownfield, right?
Yeah, the big brownfield ugly lot is this section here that curved in that it's that multicolored.
Yeah.
The rainbow.
The
section.
Neapolitan ice cream colored one.
Yeah, and it's basically a gravel pit. It wasn't
Well, this-
rock.
This is.
It had been a big pile of rocks when
And
the
they broke
last
them up
time I was
into
there.
gravel.
Is it gone?
No, it's
been
No, big
crushed
pile.
up.
it's crushed up, but it's a huge pile. It probably goes about 30 feet.
But it's safer than the boulders that were.
It's safer and
Yeah.
he's getting rid of it.
What wasn't clear to me, we went down this way and came across here,
Through here.
but we didn't really look at this section over
You
here.
get down.
There's definitely a lot of wetlands in here. There's a big,
This is so
smaller.
wet, it was all wet, we had to defer, but we could go there. It was all wet.
Yeah. So I went back after we split up actually and stopped over here and looked at it, and there's no markings at all. This is the town line, by the way. Nottingham is on the other side there, right?
Route 4 is not far from it.
Yeah, and it's just down from Route 4. And there's a stream running through here. It actually drains all the development uphill, as well as a big settling pond over here. And he's saying that that's a lot, which I just really question, because it's got a big stream running through the middle of it. And then where we were, over here was also, a lot of it had been, I guess all this section here had been cleared. It was basically clear cut
Behind
with
those.
stumps and, yeah, just a mess.
It's just a big mess.
Yeah, the houses,
Yeah, took
the
the-
derelict houses are gone
Yeah, although they left the foundation, right,
on that
and
one, yeah.
the shed and the tank of gas.
Doug, on that, where is what you said is already easement?
All the hash mark.
Oh, that's-
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he clearly knows that.
Yeah, evidently he does, although again, I'm still confused about the
A little
maps.
questionable back in
yeah.
here, I think.
The map that I had, which I was just kind of pulling off from the website, and I mean, we could look for it in the planning section, but it shows this whole corner as being conservation, not the way they show it here. So it's not clear what's up there and whether it's even cleared or not. We don't know if that road
Did,
actually demarks the boundary.
did the planning board make clear to him that the maps had to be better done?
I don't know.
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
because they clearly do have to be better done. I mean, you know, we can't work with the stuff that he's presented.
Yeah, well, again, this is very preliminary,
Yeah.
and I think he is gonna repackage it. I think that's what he said, was that I'll come back with more detail.
I actually saw him at the town hall the next day. I was there for a solar site inspection, and I told him that we were pleased with what he was talking about for consolidating the conservation plan. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I did make a comment at the planning board meeting that, just very briefly, that, you know, we're willing to work with you. And I wanted to verify that we do have some say-so in the matter. And I think they all nodded, but it wasn't.
Well, he knew he had to talk to the attorney general, but he didn't seem to realize that there's three parties involved.
Yeah,
All the easements are different parties put together.
well,
No,
no,
no, so the town
Yeah, the
holds
town,
the
they're
easement,
us.
but to change the easement, you need agreement from the attorney general, the town, and the land. Those three parties,
Yeah.
and the town is one.
yeah, we're the easement owner, so, you know.
But it's all, the same three parties are part of all the three easements that were on the map. There were three different areas.
It's all one easement.
It's all
Yeah,
one,
It's all
it's all one,
three chunks, okay.
Yeah.
it's all one.
Right.
Fragmented.
And it's all one property too, I guess, at this
And
point.
that's weird. I mean, the town apparently actually owns one of the plots.
Really?
They probably could have taken it from
Yeah,
tax.
well, they own, they own it,
Maybe one of the brownfield lots.
Is it, this one, I think.
Well, I mean, the town got that whole swath
The town owns it.
when it,
Yeah.
oh, really?
Big triangle.
But not the others.
No.
So who-
The actual real estate.
So the
We
easements
walked, that's
Yeah.
what
do
we
involve
walked.
Yeah, so that's certainly gonna stay.
Which was a
what it
challenge
is.
because they were work,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
This is definitely town owns it, so. This is developer over here.
And I believe he still wants to develop these lots here, so that's kind of
And then
problematic in
in
terms
the
of
middle of this,
isolating this.
there's existing homes. There's at least, so there's that
Right.
Mason and there's another place that we didn't see when we went in there.
When the town sold that whole piece, did they want to keep that existing?
I didn't remember that being part of the deal. I thought it was, I know there's a lot of confusion about titles and
Right.
boundaries and
Yeah.
lots, but I didn't think the town was keeping anything.
Yeah.
That was my impression from the
Yeah.
lands committee meetings, but I'm not sure that that's what happened.
That's what Vanessa said. She
Yeah.
said, This is.
Oh, she told you that?
No,
Okay, Well-
this is all, you know.
yeah. So anyway, that certainly could be a concern about just isolating, because, you know, right now, none of this exists. Even that road, it's not, I mean, there's a woods road,
Hardly.
logging road through there, but, you know, I would think we'd want to at least maintain some connectivity there. So, but the good thing too is that then there were a couple of abutters who wrote letters and then also came, or others that came to the meeting. And these are folks who live basically on Hemlock Way on Mendham's Pond. And also someone from the Mendham's Landing neighborhood, which is the other abutter. That all this is conservation land through Mendham's. And so they want to maintain all that. There's actually a nice trail network through there
All of it here.
that they want to, of course, maintain. But they're very concerned about
It's
the
pretty rugged,
potential
though.
runoff.
It's rugged.
It's
We walked
rugged,
it last year.
Yeah,
Early
yeah.
year, it was a bitch.
But again, there's a lot of wetland, and the basic issue was the wetlands all drain down to Mendham's Pond, as you might imagine. They want to be sure that Mendham's and their properties are not gonna get, you know, impacted by it. So again, we'll be coming back with more stuff, I guess, and we'll keep an eye on it.
Done.
He has to eliminate a whole Pioneer section, like wonder whether it is. Whether all that's gonna sense allowed. So,
Yeah, it's not clear how many lots he's gonna end up having. Maybe we can argue for a conservation development there too.
He was talking about merging and then re-subdividing, and it
Yeah.
was.
And a lot of it seemed to be a technicality that he needs to kind of repackage it just for legal. purposes.
Right, but I didn't get what was going
Yeah.
on.
It was confusing. So anyway, that was round two.
round two.
And then the third one was Young Road, which I believe is on our list. as well. As you know, that's an ongoing mess. And as Paul was suggesting earlier on, Indy Knapp really had it out for him. And frankly, I think everybody on the select board or
They're
the
not happy with.
planning board has questions
They're
about it.
not happy. With it.
You know, certainly the chair and even Ron Allard, who's, I guess, one of the more conservative members.
Right, he is. Yeah.
Politically conservative, not conservationist conservative, but even he said this is too big, too much. So, and a lot of it came down around the look of the neighborhood, the aesthetics, I guess you'd say, although he raised issues about drainage and.
Andy literally went through the subdivision regs, sort of paragraph by paragraph, and you know, and he ended up saying, you know, Chris took issue with what he was saying, and Andy basically said, well, you have your opinion and I have mine, and we're going to disagree.
Yeah. But anyway, it obviously isn't moving forward right away, or they're not, and I guess how they left it is, and another big issue was the disposition of the conservation area. You know, if you recall the little bits and pieces on the other side of the wetland there, adjacent to Goodwill, are to be in some kind of conservation, but it wasn't really clear, and we haven't seen any documentation of what they're actually proposing to do with it. I mean, presumably it'd be a
That's what the
homeowner's.
planning board asked for, yeah.
And so the planning board wants clarification on that. So that was kind of the next thing that he was gonna put together.
There was a big issue on access, both public access and the residents who live there. They claimed that the residents have access, and, you know, we didn't say this, but Doug and I were saying, yeah, if you swim or use a boat.
Yeah, even the trail is somewhat problematic now. I mean, it's basically the bottom of a beaver dam, and it's very wet.
Oh, that one that comes off of Young Road can
Yeah.
pass through.
Well, actually off of your way, I guess,
Well, I mean, yeah, there's, the trailhead through the property is from Young Road, if that's what you're talking about, and then it goes in.
Yeah, kind of
towards my
moves
property.
east, southeast
Yes.
towards the Goodwill.
Right,
But you're right, you know,
which is where.
the only people that can hike that trail right now are the beavers.
Yeah.
because they're good on it, it's longer.
It's really well.
but it used to be a very active snowmobile trail. And I know because I live near there, and I used it for cross-country skiing.
Yeah.
They kind of grew the trail for me. But the bridge that was there has since fallen apart or washed away. And, you know, it's still a concern about, and then there was a lot of discussion about the trail, you know, is basically gonna be in between several residential lots, and probably not a really attractive
No,
trail.
there's no parking there. There was a lot of talk about the safety issues on Young Road, both in the development phase and the residential phase.
I think we're gonna see a car get T-boned trying to get onto Young Road in the future.
Yeah, now one advantage or one improvement, I guess, he made is if, you know, there are all these, it's not a curb, but curb cuts, right? Entrances to Young Road along it was, I guess originally, I remember the yield plan would have been more, but it was 13 in that like half-mile stretch. I mean, it's pretty amazing if you think about, you know, how tricky that road is anyway.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, and they're all uphill, you know, up onto the
Right.
road. Anyway, you cut that down to 10, so they're combining several, so there'll be several that'll be two houses. And I don't know if he proposed to do it or they were talking about, there's the other road, the other, another driveway, two driveways that run parallel. They really ought to be combined because it's kind of silly. There's, and it may be because they normally only have one or two houses or not five houses on one driveway.
Right.
But, you know, it would be more.
Five houses on one driveway, it's called.
It's a road.
Yes, right. And I think that was the suggestion is make it a private road, you know, and just do it properly.
No, I heard that you guys are looking at maybe saying no more private roads.
I haven't heard that.
Where, but it's certainly an issue with,
Yes, most people living on them aren't happy.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's, you know, a lot still up in the air there.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. And the planning board was calling this a frontage subdivision. They're calling it conservation subdivision.
Yeah.
So this is-
But it's good that they all recognize that it really doesn't meet
Right.
the typical pattern of what a conservation subdivision should look like. It's not clustered at all.
Right. Yeah, it's not along its own road.
Yeah. So if I had my druthers, it seemed like we ought to be arguing. Ken, do you want to?
Yeah, there were a couple of interesting things. Chris Berry, the engineer, his response to a lot of what Andy was saying was, I've done a lot of subdivisions in Barrington, and this is no different from a lot of other things that I've done that have been accepted. And that was an interesting interchange. You know, and Andy came back to that and said, yeah, I've been on this board for 8 years, he said, and he said, I may have been part of making those decisions. And he was saying, let's not make this one, which is interesting. The other interesting thing that was discussed was that the applicant has a stormwater plan for the whole property, but there was a discussion of when those lots are going to be individually sold. So each of the 23 new property owners will have to have their own stormwater plan. And somebody pointed out, I don't know if it was Andy, I think someone else seconded it, that it's mind-boggling to think how 23 different stormwater plans can be integrated with each other. And so we'll see how that goes. I don't think this is over.
No, no, it's not. That seems,
And I'm hoping, you know, a number of these things we said early on, and I'm hoping in the end the board has the courage to do what they need to do, which is to find a credible way to say no.
yeah.
I hope
The early was, you know, your indoor pool could be filled from the pond below or from Young Road, depending on what's going on.
It seems like there's a real issue with our site planning regulations because they're not looking at what it will take to develop this whole, you know, the claim is that they don't have to look at those individual lots at all. And it sounds like the site plan regulations are the reason for that. Yet, if they look at it in integrated fashion, it may not work at all.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, there was one more thing. There was the CMA report. And that, as a response to that, is where they reduced the number of driveways to 10. But the other interesting thing that came out of the CMA report had to do with water heading towards, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, Richardson Pond. And apparently CMA didn't say their plan for their analysis of that was wrong. They said, you know, if you did the analysis differently, you might have gotten a different result. And I think that was a little subtle, but there it was.
I guess somewhat relevant to this, if you recall, we had some discussion previously about getting a regional impacts analysis from the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. And it was a little confusing to me that I talked to a couple of our town's members on the commission. And one of them had been there a while and also previously had been on the planning board, told me that the planning board needs to make the request, not the Conservation Commission. And when I brought it up with the chair of the planning board, he thought that, well, he said he'd talk about it with Vanessa, and I haven't found out what came out of that discussion. But he also said I can't discuss it outside of the planning board meeting, which I'm sure is, appropriate. But it was never clear whether. Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying, he didn't say anything more. And it didn't come up at the meeting, the last meeting either. So I'm not sure if that's dead or if we need to kind of prod him a bit, or see if we can make the request. But anyway, that would at least go some way toward looking at this regional. The idea, of course, is downstream of even Richardson Pond is the Bellamy Reservoir, which of course is the water supply for the greater Portsmouth area. And, a whole lot of folks would be concerned about that.
I wonder if all these storm plans, if they were to dump water into that pond, which eventually makes a way, does it basically say that all the data that we might be using to make the dam decision worthless?
Well,
Just going worry about dirty water. I guess the question is how much volume.
yeah, well, there's a whole question about the dam holding back all that sediment.
Yeah.
If we were to remove the dam, yes, that would certainly be an issue. But in any case, it's impacting it one way or another. So I'll see if we can follow up. I'm certainly interested to hear what Vanessa had to say about it. So anyway, that's one other wrinkle in the discussion.
And by the way, they also said that for the Coot Farm Regional Planning Board needed to be pulled in on that as well.
Who said that? What's that?
That was the planning board. I don't remember. I think they were in general agreement on that, that the regional plan, this was a regional development issue because there were so many dwelling units that they're talking about pulling in.
Yeah, it's certainly much bigger, so it makes it all the more sense there, even though it doesn't affect water supply directly, but somebody downstream, so. Yeah,
I mean, just in the sheer numbers and what we have available for slots for high school students.
Yeah, well, again, it's not our.
I know, it's
our
just
say, but yeah, it's obviously a factor.
again, how that regional planning look at it.
They said something like the number of residential units that are being proposed here is a third of what has been planned for the next, was it 10 years or longer than that or something? I mean, it was huge.
Yeah, certainly a lot of impact. So I guess we'll leave it at there to be continued. We want to go into the Richardson Dam. I don't know what, Ken, do you have?
Yeah, I don't know whether I sent you an email about 20 minutes before the meeting started.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the ecological study. Right.
Yeah, so Connor sent Doug and I an email basically saying, do we want to go ahead with getting Mark West to do the ecological study on Richardson Pond? And I think at a previous meeting, we said we were interested in doing that. So I called Mark West up and he said, sure. He can have a proposal to us by our next meeting on the 25th.
Okay, so point which will have a dollar figure, right?
Yeah, he said that's a little bit complicated because essentially it'll be two studies. He'll have to study wildlife and he'll have to study wetland and then integrate the two. So, but he's going to work on it. He will, he said what we do on the 25th may turn into being a pre-proposal, that we talk about and then, revise to a point where we're happy and he can make it into something with So
Okay,
that's progress.
yeah. And it doesn't sound like there's anything we need to do tonight, right? Hold that off till the next.
We could confirm that we're interested in going ahead with that. And I don't think you need to take a vote on it.
You know, it's good information to have, whether it's
Yeah,
a
what are our
viable thing or
options?
not. just
Because we're
to
not
know.
gonna get probably any help from the town if they don't have all the questions answered.
Right.
Ken, is he going to come to the next meeting?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, he'll come and bring some paper.
Okay, so
and
stay
we'll-
tuned.
We'll talk.
No more than. Monitoring?
We did Gary R. That
Yeah.
we're off to a start. It
Yeah.
was a tough walk, but it was a good walk. We learned a lot. Very timely.
Right, and otherwise,
I've got my
pretty good
report
for
all
the
covered. I said it off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Should be tomorrow.
there was one inquiry on email about, the, Caliph report for L-chip. Thought that you said that you had done that. They didn't seem to think so. Maybe you can just refer or remind them that you, but you should have an email from here from Concom address
I
forwarding their inquiry. They sent a couple of messages actually last week, so they seem to think they get it. So,
Okay.
but otherwise,
I got it all in. I thought it said.
you have a,
Depends on the right person.
Yeah, that
Right.
that might be. I mean,
yeah, maybe it went to somebody else.
Oh, that person's not 9 months ago.
Yeah, well.
It's sitting in the inbox.
You know, they still send all the comments or the inquiries to Ken, so I should let him know that I'm in charge. So that's it for monitoring.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah, I haven't set up the blocks for this year. I'll come in there.
Yeah, well, the way the winter's going, maybe we'll be able to put it in. So.
We'll pick the Highlands first.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I can confirm that Caliph East was mostly underwater today. So.
Yeah, I went out there last year when we had the flooding and of course it froze and then the water receded. So there was all this plate ice all over the trails.
Yeah.
I ended up hauling a toilet seat out of there
No,
because all the stuff that had come down river.
Yeah.
Of course, that was the same flood that took out the Red Bridge.
I was gonna say, did I hear the Red Bridge has also been swept away though, or swept up to a different location?
I heard a rumor about that. Theoretically, it's not our land to go out and walk.
Well, it was private, but it's good to know if it's blocking the river or something.
Well, but there's so many things blocking the river between
Yes,
and
but-
stumps. It's, you know, I call it it's a not kayak navigable unless you want to do a lot of
Well,
portage.
Yeah. But it would be good to know, I guess, if it's off, it's totally off.
Has anybody gotten any other inquiries about why we haven't fixed it yet?
No, that's good. I heard not recently. but,
Good.
Yeah. I think that does it for business, unless anybody has anything else, Trails Committee, I guess.
We managed to do a special moonlight hike and we're revising the book, which we agreed we would use what we used at the end of the program, which is, you know, Concom would front all the money, is not have John do it.
When do you aim for the new book to be out?
We gotta see how fast we can move on things.
I guess it would be good to know if at least Leighton Forest, if they, even just to have the preliminary trail.
Well, yeah, but if it's not marked and labeled,
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to send people out there.
Yeah,
And
sure.
most of our members are the same.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to have something in there about.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could add a new one, given all the activity, like, they're talking about not wanting trails. And that they actually want us to kind of obscure the trails on the Shoals Turtle Preserve. They don't want anybody going out. It was weird, because a couple of
Really?
years ago, we took a hike out there. We actually saw herons up in this. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
and why wouldn't, I mean, those are. pretty
It's, well, because
trails.
it's beautiful and it's,
Yeah,
there's herons and other birds there, and they don't want people disturbing them. They don't have to take every area they get and turn it into a
but
trail.
they've got these kiosks there, this is.
Yeah, but that kiosk right now goes into it goes in the area that was the Barrington Trail.
Yeah, right, it is, yeah, so there is a trail, I mean,
Yeah.
it just
but
seems kind of
But
odd.
you gotta go to the right, if you go
Yeah,
in there, you gotta go
that's
to the right
right,
to, if you wanna
Right,
see the pond and all
Is it
that.
south you're talking?
yeah, this
Yeah.
is so,
Because
it's our.
You go out on the
Yeah,
Barrington Trail now from the baseball park and you head up. And then, next thing you know, you're walking right along the border when all the cell signs are there.
Yeah.
And you know that, you're right, because we made a point of not going in there for our bear hike. Didn't want to get anybody upset
Yeah, yeah,
because we were serving food.
yeah. Yeah, and of course, there's no off-road parking at the trailhead either, so it's a factor. But, yeah.
But then we're planning maintenance, we done things like stiffened lighted kiosks and stuff like that and stuff, but now the ground's pretty much frozen, so we're pretty
Yeah.
limited to what we can do.
And there were several trees, of course, come
Oh, yeah.
down since, actually, I was gonna mention the flooding, there's this big old log that must have come down the river, but it's on the river trail on Caleb East, right by the end there, but it's just kind of weird, because that wasn't there last time I was here. And it's like huge, it's like, 2 foot diameter.
So this is on the far eastern end of it.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
literally
which is-
10 feet
yeah,
from,
It's weird because that trail is almost dominated by ferns
yeah.
in the regular season.
Yeah, and it's all been washed out, washed away, including all those, a lot of the invasive.
Yeah, I'm wondering if our cans all,
They all seem to be okay, but it's the big piles of.
oh yeah, that could be I'm hoping it's dead by now.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're supposed to leave it up high and dry, and
Yeah,
Is
this
it
is the
buckthorn?
buckthorn.
Yeah,
Glossy buckthorn.
the deal is you put some branches and stuff down such that when you pile it up, it doesn't make contact with the ground. So it gets no sustenance and will die.
Yeah.
The same flooding could end up driving it.
Yeah,
This was back in the middle of summer or so.
Yeah, we had some volunteers come in from Lincoln Financial.
yeah, and there's a lot more to do, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all either, so.
No one has any illusions that we're gonna kill the bugs.
Yeah.
The Japanese do not weed. And of course, we have a better chance if we could use deadly chemicals. But
Yeah.
we're not qualified to do that. And I guess the last thing here is nothing's new on those lots adjacent to the town forest, since you didn't touch it.
Yeah, again, did
Okay.
plan
Yeah,
committee,
there's-
and you haven't talked with,
There's nothing, I mean,
Brian?
I don't, well, Brian, remember, Brian has resigned.
Oh, he's no longer.
No, it's AJ Dupaire. Right, something like that. AJ, I know him as AJ. He's he's in charge of the lands committee now, but I don't think that Connor has tasked them with anything, so they are in limbo.
Yeah, that would be good, to at least task him with figuring out.
Well, what would we want him to do?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about at least looking over these are the properties by the town forest,
Right.
just to see what the situation is. And I don't know, it's,
I think he does know that. We could ask him to report it out. We had been talking about doing a walk over there. And, I think we could probably get him to lead us through there. If we wanted. We could just do it ourselves.
yeah. And, well, I guess again, it's a question of whether it really is a viable,
We might want to go out and take a look if we get there, because
Yeah.
to get into the meat of the town forest, you gotta go over our bridges. Last year, those bridges were within about 4 inches of going under.
yeah, it might be worth.
And if the beavers are at it again, then they will be.
Yeah, when does it come up for monitoring? Is it?
No, it's not,
It's not.
It's not on the list,
concerned,
no.
yeah.
no, it's just town owned.
Yeah, so we don't
It's
have
the
a
river.
formal monitoring, okay,
But I'm just saying, we
Still could walk there.
yeah. Could do a hike. Well, when the weather is better, maybe.
waited.
All right, well, we'll see. What's up with that? Okay, anything else? Sightings?
It's on Eagle on Beauty Hill Road. Yeah.
Flying over?
Yeah.
Might have been, I saw an eagle on Mendham, so.
Bald eagle or regular?
Oh,
Yeah, I had one today.
I think MUR had a Concord monitor. I couldn't open it because I paid for it, but I had an article about There's a lot more breeding pairs.
Yeah, I guess I did some inventories. 92.
There was a 40-year study through Audubon, midwinter eagle study. And it concluded a few years ago. You could just see year over year the game. Pretty steady. So,
It's here for Rachel Carson.
Yeah.
Seen it on Ayers Lake pretty regularly.
Yeah.
They're still nesting down at the campground.
In the last couple of days, there's been a lot of, geese flying over. Isn't this great?
Yeah,
I mean,
it does seem like.
Yeah.
I've seen every day.
The water-
It's like.
The water's open still.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because they're like.
Although I guess geese don't fly south as much as they used to, or.
It's warm enough here that they,
You know, find enough.
Yeah.
I guess farmland. Or,
Well, the Great
that's an
Bay.
issue with the pathogens. Yeah.
Avian influenza store.
Chickens.
We had some chickens coming this week.
I can't buy ahead on eggs. You warned us years ago, coming about that coming. Egg prices.
Yeah, yeah. I saw some bubbleheads on a pond, which is kind of fun time of year. And we had a awesome turn up in our, well, he's been around for a while, but we found him in the coop actually. So we're gonna find him a new home, so.
Yeah, he probably wasn't welcome.
I mean, it's not really a problem, but they do like eggs, so. They supposedly like chickens too, but mess with the chickens, so. But we'd rather not tempt them, so. Anything else? Is that?
You like them when they go back and eat ticks. That's always the big.
Yeah,
thing.
that
Don't
was-
kill the possums, they
yeah,
eat ticks.
yeah.
Yeah, they'll eat your chickens too.
Okay, so we'll see you after Groundhog Day.
okay, that's it, Ken.
Well, we have
A
another
lot of
meeting.
development stuff going
Yeah.
on. Wild.
Well,
Well,
So
second,
adjourn.
I mean, oh, I'm sorry.
We're about to, I think.
25th. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's true. We'll
Send me a
we'll
official.
coordinate
Thursday, it'll be the 25th.
Yeah, okay.
See ya.
Hi, Ken.
Are you gonna come for the next meeting, Ken?
I plan to, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
See you later.